So here's my story about you're just going to eventually know things. When I was first on the staff as a senior lieutenant, junior captain, working for a major who, and the boss was a lieutenant colonel, we would go through these planning cycles, and I would be surprised or confused as to why the major and the lieutenant colonel just knew things, and they would give us guidance about how to change the the things we were doing in the planning cycle, and it would just work out really well as long as we followed their advice. um and it was really interesting to me. I was wondering why it was that they just knew these things. And fast forward like a decade, 10, 15 years, and I'm in these planning cycles, and these two-star generals are getting these briefings. And so the team is doing this planning, and then they're coming and briefing the general, and then they're doing planning and briefing the general. And at each one of these generals giving us these planning instructions, and it's like he knows where this is going, how this is going to go, and he's guiding our planning process, not not forcing us into a particular decision, but guiding us to make sure that we're not wasting time looking at this minor detail or that minor detail. Instead, we're focusing on the things that are actually going to make it. And about 3 or 4 years later, I suddenly realized we were going into the briefing, and I was knowing in advance what the boss was going to tell us to change. And I was starting to see why, how it was that they could, in a situation that they'd never seen before, this set of scenario, the particular scenario was different than anything that they'd ever encountered. But suddenly they already were anticipating particular kinds of things, and those are the actual things that actually mattered. And when I was at First Corps the first time, so that was under a two-star general, under a three-star general here at First Corps, JBLM, when it had just been renamed to JBLM. We're going through the planning cycle, and it was like, oh, I know what he's going to tell us, and I know why he's going to tell us that. And yet we're going to go through this planning cycle again, the complete planning cycle from beginning to end, even though we actually know. I mean, he could just tell us, do this. But what he's doing is giving every one of his staff multiple times to go through this planning process. And when you go through the process multiple times, you get you start getting these repetitions that it's like the being in a weight room. You don't get strong by going to the weight room one time. You get strong by going to the weight room repeatedly, consistently, over time. You learn how to make decisions by thinking about those decisions as you're making them. Don't just make every single decision. Intuitively, you're probably going to make the right decision 60 or 70% of the time. But don't change yourself. Don't shortchange yourself. Go through the decision-making process to understand the factors that are going into why your gut tells you this is the right answer. Your gut is very valuable. Trust your gut, but use your brain to assess and evaluate why that's the right answer, so that next time when you're in a situation where you don't quite have as much certainty on your gut feel, you'll have some ways of thinking about how to solve that problem. Okay, there's a lot of rambling. But yeah, that's what I mean when I say by the time you're like in your late 30s, early 40s, you're just going to know things. And it's because you've seen enough different versions of life, of the kinds of things that happen, that in this new scenario, with no details of the particular situation known in advance, intuitively, you still are going to know the right answer. You just maybe won't know why you know the right answer. If you're deliberate during your 20s and 30s about learning how to understand what's happening, doing some kind of thought process, you'll be more confident that that there's a reason behind your intuitive decision. So I'm Keith, I'm the bald guy. And that's a lot of what I mean when I say I help small businesses with marketing theory and also tactics, techniques, training, and technology.